Evening, everyone. How are you doing? Good, good. Okay. How was the food? Yes. Can we? I don't know if the kitchen crew can hear us, but I bet if we're loud enough, they can. How was the food? Excellent. Okay. Good, good. There's a few things that we can guarantee in life, and that is if you feed people, they will be happy. So we're glad that you're here, and now you are full belly and happy. So we have, I think there's notes coming around, and so is that right? Yeah, I see some. Good. All right. Any on this side? No? All right. Cool. So we're gonna jump in. We're in this kind of First Wednesday series. We're talking about world religions, but tonight's different. Tonight's not a religion, but it is a worldview. Can you hear that, Brian? Brian, can you help? There's like a echo or something. So can you guys hear that? Yeah. Okay. I'll keep talking. Echo. Did you hear that? I totally heard that one. So we're looking at a worldview, and we're looking at atheism and agnosticism. Now, I'm using both terms. I'm gonna speak and like interact with atheism, and in doing so, we'll lump agnosticism in there because the perspective of one is kind of the perspective of both. Atheism and agnosticism have kind of a weird marriage, in that many atheists will say they're agnostic, many agnostics will say they're agnostic, though they are atheist, and there's this kind of play back and forth, and either of them really aren't will waffle in between both. So we're gonna jump in, shall we? All right, good. So you got your notes. Now here's the good news. I'm gonna go through the first part fairly quickly, and I preemptively decided I would do this, so the first page is already filled in for you. You've already filled in the notes. You've done the work. Your homework has been done for you. You have you have the neighbor next to you who gave you all the answers. Good job. So we're gonna go through atheism, and you can just sit back and just kind of listen. You can take notes as we go, and oh, that was interesting, or thoughts. And then when we get to the response, that'll be the time when we talk about how to respond to atheism, in which you're gonna fill in and interact and kind of think through and that kind of stuff. So even as I go, if you don't have your notes in hand, you're fine. You're not gonna miss any blanks. I know that's the biggest deal on a Wednesday, is you get all the blanks filled in. So I promise you'll get all those filled in. It's gonna be good. So let's talk about the definition of atheism and agnosticism. The first is atheism. It is the disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God or gods, plural. Singular or plural, any amount or variation of gods. It's the disbelief or lack of belief. So, and that's actually a really important distinction, because if you know or have talked with someone who is an atheist, or you are an atheist, maybe if there's some in this room, hey man, good, I'm so glad you're here. Not every atheist agrees or thinks the same thing or same way as another atheist or agnostic. And so you can both claim the title atheism, and it can mean so many, it can have so many different flavors, so to speak. For instance, you can be kind of what I would call an active atheist, in which you are actively trying to promote atheism and discredit or disprove any form of religion or religious organization or theism of any kind. This would be kind of the well-known atheism, or atheists who write books and are kind of actually trying to actively promote atheism, right? So there's that version of atheism. And then there's what we could call a passive atheist, in which it's not really their lifelong mission to go and promote atheism. They just are an atheist, and they're kind of just living their life and quiet about it, and not really trying to ruin anyone else's kind of views of God. Or it's just sort of hey, I just live my life and I don't believe in God, but you can, and that's totally fine, right? And there's that kind, and you probably know those kind. Maybe you know some of both. So the term atheism is broad in that both of those people fit in it. So you could say the disbelief is the statement, there is no God. That statement is an active, definitive statement in which I have done the work, or I have decided, or I am actively promoting this idea there is no God. The other side is a lack of belief. It's not saying, hey, who am I to tell you what to believe? But I personally lack a belief in God. You see the difference? Both are atheists, and so both are included in the definition. Agnostics, or agnosticism, is different. The existence of God, or the divine, or the supernatural is both two things: unknown or unknowable. So either they would say, you just simply don't know, or they don't know. It's not even like anyone can't know, but like, I personally don't know, and so how do I know which religion is right or which belief system is right, or how do I know at all? So there's a personal sort of agnosticism, or there's kind of a universal agnosticism in which they would say it's not possible to know. That all of this, like the supernatural, the unseen, the God and it is actually unknowable. It's not that I don't know it, it's that you can't know it, right? So what they're saying is maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. I don't know, and or you can't know. Okay, you see the difference? Now, both land on the side of not having faith. That's why they're kind of this kind of odd marriage in which they share a similar worldview, though they come at it from different angles. Both will say we don't have a belief or faith system in any kind of religious organization or divine being of any kind. Okay, make sense? So here's what we're gonna do. Most of the time, what happens in arguments or discussions or debates is what's called straw manning. You guys know what this is? Right? A straw man is this. It's called the straw man fallacy. You build an argument, and in fact, you misrepresent someone else's view to build an argument to then defeat that argument, and then in doing so, say, I have defeated them. And you happen to build an argument that is really easy to defeat, a straw man, so to speak, and doesn't accurately represent their views, but you say it does, and then you defeat that, and everyone says, oh, wow, look how easily he defeated that person's views. Look how much smarter, brighter this person is. It's straw manning, and it's terrible, and both sides do it. People do it about Christianity, and let's be honest, we do it about others. We try to give a little soundbite and define someone's belief system in a sentence, and then we come and we demolish that, whatever that soundbite is, and we just say, oh. So we'll say something like this. Well, you just think we all came from monkeys, and I look around, I don't see any humans coming from monkeys. Therefore, clearly, you're wrong. And you're like, yeah, get him. I just straw manned him. This person's like, when did I ever say we come from monkeys? And when does that ever happen in a single generation? Nobody believes that. Yet we prop that up like that's the view, and then we knock it down. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is not straw man atheism, because I have no interest in that. It gets us nowhere. What I want to do is what's called steel manning. A steel man is this. I present your best, most compelling argument possible. The thing that maybe you haven't even thought about. I want to make this as strong of an argument as possible, and I'm going after that. Does that make sense? Straw man is simple and it's easy and it doesn't convince anyone. If you can take out or at least have an interaction, a really good intellectual, effective interaction with someone, and their toughest, hardest conversations, like the issues, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're having a real conversation that has some meat in it. So I'm going to present atheism to you as a steel man. I'm gonna present it if I were an atheist, these would be the claims I would make. These are the things that I would go around saying and sharing, and we'll see what happens, okay? So I have no interest in propping up some easily defeated argument. What I want to do is say, here's what atheism espouses, promotes, believes, and then we'll interact with that. Does that make sense? Good? You interested in doing that? Okay, good. My goal, though, just so you know, is not to convert you to atheism, okay? All right? So if it's super compelling and you walk out halfway through, you gotta wait till the end. You gotta wait for the responses, all right? Make sense? Agreed? Agreed. Okay, good. All right, so when we talk about atheism, atheists believe, first, God does not exist. God does not exist. Matter is all that does exist, or nature, they could call it. This is often referred to as naturalism. Any event that seems supernatural is really a natural occurrence, maybe lacking information or interpretation or discovery or understanding. But any supernatural event really is just a natural event that you think is supernatural. Miracles clearly do not occur. Miracles, as defined by the suspension of the natural laws of order, cannot physically happen. So miracles do not occur. If you're going to talk to me about miracles, then right out the gate, I'm not going to listen to it, right? Several factors argue against the existence of God, and we'll get into those. One of the things that is kind of the, I don't know, but not poster child, so to speak, but a well-known kind of atheist and statement is Carl Sagan, and he said this. Back in 1980, in the show The Cosmos, he said it starts, the very first line of this whole documentary is, the cosmos, like the universe, is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. Here's what he's saying. The only thing that has ever existed, that will ever exist, is the natural world universe that we interact with and understand and can see and observe and measure. And that's it, right? That's the statement of naturalism. So, what can we know about God? As an atheist, this is the atheist position. We'll go fairly quickly, but this is why you have all the notes filled in. We'll just kind of run through these. God cannot be measured and quantified. That's true. And there is no viable proof for his existence. Also true. Don't leave. Remember, you're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to leave, okay? So we're going to talk about that. All right. So they'll right off the bat say there's no proof. There's no proof. If you can show me 100% proof, I'll believe right now. Now, give me some proof. And you're sitting there going, my pastor said once that the Bible is God's word. I don't know. And you're stuck. And here's what they just did. Ready? They just strawmanned you. And they defeated your argument. So we're not going to do that. You're going to be better than that. After today, you will be better than that. I hope. Maybe. Most of you. What can we know about right and wrong? So they'll just say right off the bat, what can we know about God? Nothing. Put God on can we measure God? Can we put him in a beaker? Can we put him in a microscope? Where? Point to him. Where's he at? Show me. And you're sitting here going like, well, no, you can't really, he's not visible. And they're like, okay, so you believe in some invisible creature being. All right, so that's your God. And you're like, oh, I've already lost. So, right off the gate, God can't be measured. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second, how to respond. Big idea, if there is no God, everything is permitted. This is what if I'm an atheist, this is what I respond to. This is a statement by Dostoevsky, who was a believer and a Christian, and here's what he says. If there's no God, then there's no moral absolute, so you can do anything. If God isn't real, God doesn't exist, then anything and everything is permitted. Who am I to say you can't do that thing? So, an atheist, as an atheist, respond to that. First, we can behave morally without believing in God. This is just simple and at its face, obviously correct. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you can't be good or make good decisions or even say, I believe in like good over evil, or I believe in morality and I want to teach my kids to be good people, not bad people. I don't have to be a Christian to be a good person, or at least try to be a good person. So I can behave as an atheist, again, if I was an atheist, we can behave morally without believing in God. We don't need God to be good, right? Agreed? I hope you agree. That is a true statement. That is a true statement. As much as you want to say false to everything I say, that is a true statement. We can know what is right and wrong or good and bad without believing in God. True or false? True. I heard a few falses, but that's true. You can know that, like, you don't have to be a Christian or a believer in God to say murder is wrong. There are millions of people who believe murder is wrong and yet would say, no, I'm not because God said so, but I believe it's wrong. It's still morally wrong, even though I don't believe in God. We don't need God in the picture to explain objective morality. As an atheist, they would say, well, there's objective morality, and I don't need God to sit on his clouds to tell me what is right or wrong or good or bad. I can believe in objective morality without believing in God. Transcendent moral absolutes, this is, again, an atheist. I'm an atheist right now, explaining my beliefs. Transcendent moral absolutes do not exist. True or false? Oh, no responses. Okay, now we're, okay. You want to know, I'm pausing my, I would not share this as an atheist, but what's the problem with this statement? How would you respond to this? Are you absolutely sure about that? To which they would say, I'm absolutely sure. Well, then there's at least one absolute, isn't there? That there are no absolutes. It's what's called a self-defeating statement, but it sounds really good. It sounds like a really nice, like bites, like it's a really good, statement. Hey, there are no moral absolutes. Really? Is that a moral absolute? Or is that statement also not absolute? It could be wrong. You could be wrong about there not being moral absolutes, which means there are moral absolutes. And you get in this more like, he said, she said, well, what about that? And you're like, oh, but the statement is one of those that sounds really good. It sounds so good. All right, back to me being an atheist. Morality is relative to one's perspective or cultural norms. So the argument is, just because it's a moral value here in America doesn't mean it is in India or China or South Korea or wherever. That just because we say this is our perspective doesn't mean it is for everyone. Values are accepted to aid in our survival as a species. The reason we don't murder is because we need to survive as a species. That if everyone was fine with being murdered and murdering people, there wouldn't be many of us left. So we don't murder because it's key to our survival. All right, there's a reason for it without invoking God. Values must originate within human beings because they are human values. That we value certain things, and we decide, and they come from us. So values have to originate from human beings. Again, you're hearing all this, and you're going, I hope, at least in your mind, you're thinking, I don't think I agree with all of these, but I don't know why. And I don't know how I would respond. Okay, because we're steel manning. We're trying to present the best possible argument. An individual's judgment or the culture's majority determines societal values. This is why we vote, or we make, like in culture, we agree on what is right and wrong, and we pass laws, and there is a sense in which the majority trumps the individual. All right? Good is what's best for the greatest number. So, what's good for the greater good for most of us is what we would deem as good, i.e., don't murder, because that's what's best for the majority of us. Is belief in God compatible with science? So this is a Christian proof, a Christian idea, and as an atheist, let me respond to this. Again, notice as an atheist, what I'm doing, I'm actually trying to steel man Christianity, right? It's the best thing you can do. Straw man is terrible and everyone sees right through it. A steel man is, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So you guys, you Christians say whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore, the universe has a cause. And then you say that cause is God, which is quite a jump. That's quite a leap, all right? As an atheist, let me respond. Some physicists think the universe has no beginning, that it is eternal. Now, most have come to the realization that that the universe is expanding, which means that at one point, if you go in reverse, if the universe is expanding, then the opposite is true. At one point, it was, if we shrink back in time, at one point there was, it began in an instant, at the beginning, the center of the universe. And then the Big Bang. The Big Bang happened, and it has expanded, right? Great. You guys believe in the Big Bang? Oh, okay. That'll be maybe that'll be a first Wednesday that we do, because it'll be fun. All right, particles. Now this is true. We know this to be true. Some particles pop into existence uncaused at the subatomic level. We can measure this, we can observe this, and so we know, okay, there are certainly some uncaused particles that just seem to just kind of appear or jump without having to travel, all right? It would make sense then that when the universe was just as, at its instance, when it was just, and it could have done the same thing. This begs the question, if everything has a cause, everything that exists has a cause, and you say God exists, well then my question to you would be, who or what caused God? If we're gonna say this about the universe, as an atheist, my response is, well then how do you explain who caused or what caused God? Doesn't he also need an explanation? If you're gonna require me to have an explanation of the beginning of the universe, I'm gonna see that and I'm gonna trump you one more and say, well, okay, fine. Who or what caused God? Where did that domino begin? All right? Again, you're probably going, hope I never get asked this question, please. Questions that were once answered by appealing to religion or witchcraft or voodoo and God have been solved by science, i.e., a big one, the flat earth. Now, hopefully there's no flat earthers in here. If you are, great, let's chat, I'll show you some photos. And some things that in the past, like we thought this was true, turns out as we discover more and investigate more and science continues to grow in its understanding of the universe, that we actually can solve things that used to be, this used to be just magic. We understand now about bacteria and viruses. In the past, it was just, we'll give them blood. I don't know if you know this. We discovered there are different blood types. Did you know that? They didn't know, used to know that. They would just give blood and pray over them and hope it healed them. And if they prayed hard enough, it healed them. And if they didn't, the person died. Turns out they didn't know about blood types. And we gave them the wrong blood type and their body didn't accept it. They didn't know that. They were just thinking it was about God and faith and magic. And now we know. Science tells us we know. God is not needed to fill in the gaps. The unknowns of science, we no longer need God to say, well, because we don't know, we therefore invoke God. We say, no, actually, we do. We do know quite a bit. Even if the universe has a beginning, as an atheist, again, an atheist was like, this does not mean that God caused it. Even if that were true, that you would say the universe has a beginning, so it has a cause, and so therefore God. Just because it has a cause doesn't mean, how do we jump already to, God caused it? That seems like quite a jump that you Christians make. Human origins can be explained by evolution. Not God, we see this, we can measure this, we can see species evolving over time. It's documented. We know this to be true. All right. The belief in a supernatural is inconsistent with science and the natural order. This is voodoo, witchcraft, and it's our imagination or wishful thinking at best. At worst, it's a power play to control people. But we claim supernatural. Things we don't know, we just say supernatural. Miracles, therefore, cannot exist and are contrary to the scientific method. How do you measure a miracle in a lab? Prove it to me, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that this was a miracle. Now, so far so good? Pretty good steel man? All right, I'm not done. Okay, we're gonna make the atheist claim even stronger. If God is good, why is there evil? Theists claim that God is all-powerful and all-loving, right? God can do anything he wants. And God is love. That's what you guys say. God is love, all right? But they also believe that evil exists, both morally, individually, and what people do, and naturally, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, etc. Okay? So, God is all-powerful. He can do anything he wants. God is all-loving. He is motivated by love, yet bad things still happen. Okay? How could a loving God allow such evil? A good God must have a good purpose. So if evil exists, There cannot be an absolutely good God. If God is all good and he could stop evil and he doesn't, then maybe this God of yours isn't quite so good that he allows bad things. Now, let me pause real quick. You feel your blood boiling a little bit? Some of you? This is, no? Okay, good. I hope, just breathe here. Get some water. I'm going to get some water. Okay, just breathe. It's fine. Here we go. Okay, remember, this is we're steel manning, all right? The reality of evil demonstrates that either there is no God or there's a God, but he's not good like you guys say. That he allows evil and really terrible evil. Not like, oh, I fell on my bike and scraped my knee. Like real evil. Like the kind of stuff that just happened in Israel. Stuff we don't want to look at pictures, we don't want to think about, we don't want to talk about. How come that kind of stuff happens? Sam Harris, he's often referred to as one of the four horsemen of atheism. He's written a number of books. Maybe one of the most well-known, certainly one of the most well-known atheists alive. He says, the problem of vindicating an omnipotent and omniscient God in the face of evil is insurmountable. Those who have claimed to have surmounted it by recourses to notions of free will and other incoherencies have merely heaped bad philosophy onto bad ethics. Whatever your guys' view on this is, he says, is just bad philosophy on top of really bad ethics. That's how you answer this question, all right? There is no good reason that would justify God allowing a child to be abused or murdered. There's no good reason that you could give me that God would allow that. This good God that can do anything. All right? There's no good reason that would justify God in allowing so much evil rather than a lot less. If he could stop it, how come there's so much? If he could prevent it, how come he doesn't? Let's continue. The Bible, this is often what you'll get when you talk with atheists as well. The Bible, by the way, is unreliable and a collection of myths. It was written at a time when people were easily fooled. There's no science back then. It would be easy to fool or distract people. Even though Jesus existed, I'll grant you that, the Bible was put together long after he died. Also true. Long after Jesus had died, they decided to put the Bible together. How can you trust what it says? The original Bible, I don't know if you know this, the original Bible manuscripts do not exist. We don't have a single one of them. Of all the 66 books, there's not one single one that we have. This is the one that they wrote. We don't have it. There's not a, so how can we even know that Paul wrote this or Jesus said that? They can be changed and we wouldn't even know it. We wouldn't even know it, all right? There's no way to know whether anything written about Jesus is true. Not only that, the Bible is full of contradictions and scientific errors. It's full of them. Why would I trust this document? Full of contradictions and errors. Okay. Thus concludes my discussion as to why you should be an atheist. All right. Now, convinced? You don't want to say yes. I know you don't want to say yes. Now, harder question. How do you respond? How do you respond to someone who just says all of it? Now, they're probably not going to be on a stage presenting that in a room, but over coffee or maybe with someone, maybe over the course of weeks or months, these topics come up and these are the things they say and you're trying to figure out how do I respond and what do I say next and I don't want to get it wrong and I really don't know what to do. All right. Okay, we're going to go over some do's and don'ts. Before we do, let me, if there's nothing else now I'm a pastor again, okay, good? All right. So if there's nothing else you hear from tonight, I want you to hear this. Ready? There should not, I know this isn't true yet, maybe for a lot of us, but there should not be a single topic or question or objection that an atheist gives that you should be afraid of. There's not one. There's not a topic or a question or an objection that someone brings up that someone else hasn't already answered and answered well. So because you may not know the answer in that moment to this question, and they sound like this brilliant person who has just ruined your faith, all you have to do is Google. Just do a little research. Type in the question and realize, oh man, there's actually a lot of good responses to the things that they bring up. Just because you don't know it right now doesn't mean that there isn't an answer. Does that make sense? So there should never be a time when you feel like my faith is gonna be destroyed because of a question that an atheist or an agnostic or even someone of another faith that they bring up. And if I don't have the answer, it's all over. That's simply not the case. I promise you, there is not only a good answer for everything I just talked about, but there are really, really great responses that then say, all right, atheist, how do you explain this? So we're gonna go over some do's and don'ts and then some ways to respond, and then we'll do some Q&A. Sound good? Okay, so number one, don't assume that atheists and agnostics have nothing positive to contribute. Don't do this. It's really easy, and this is probably what you see on TV, where if you hear someone's an atheist, you immediately think you're an idiot. Or I don't like, anything you say is wrong. Don't do that. You must be a terrible person, a terrible parent, a terrible husband, because you're an atheist. Don't do that. This is a real person, and they have real thoughtful ideas that need to be looked at and addressed and interacted with. This is an actual real person with real views, and they might have even more, their views might be more thought out than yours. So don't just write them off and just think, well, clearly there's nothing I can learn or hear from you because you're an atheist. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Do carefully consider arguments presented by atheists and agnostics. Don't write them off as, well, that's just silly. What a silly question. And usually what happens is if we don't have the answer, we criticize the question. Well, you even asking that shows me that you don't have an open mind to listen to what I have to say. It's usually a response. That is a terrible evangelism strategy. Well, clearly, you are closed-minded, to which they would say, well, are you closed-minded? No, I'm open-minded. Okay, so let's have a conversation then. No, I don't want to, because you're closed-minded. Fine, we're not friends anymore. No. Do carefully consider the arguments presented by atheists. Some of these I'll skip over. They're in your notes, so if I miss over a line, it's fine. You could take it home and you got all this to read. Okay, this one. Oh man, this is another one. Don't be combative. Listen, this is not a fight. This is a person that maybe you care about, maybe you're close with, that you really do want to have a good conversation, you want to interact with, and you want to help try to both edify each other. The goal is not to win a fight. If you're in this to win a fight, then just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't be combative. Be gentle, treat them with respect. This is true. Literally, Jesus says, love others and treat others how you want to be treated. Okay, right? Treat them how you want them to treat you, with respect and kindness, right? Not as a fight. Please do learn arguments supporting, this is what we're gonna do tonight, supporting God's existence, the Bible's reliability, and other core truths of Christianity. Listen, this is the hard truth now for you. Don't assume that because you're a Christian, you know all the answers. Don't assume that because you go to church, you have all the answers, you're ready for anything that comes your way. I promise you, you're not. I'm not. I've been doing this for years, and I still am I didn't know that. You know what? That's a great question. I need to go look into that. And it's encouraging for me to go, I need to research more. I need to continue to grow in my understanding of other people's worldviews. Learn arguments supporting God's existence. If you and I were to go to coffee, and I were to say, all right, can you give me 3 reasons you believe in God? Could you do it? And say, okay, now give me 3 reasons why I should believe in God. Because I'm gonna guess your first reason is gonna be personal. You had an experience or a moment or an interaction or the realization. I'm like, great, okay, that's good for you. Now what about me? Why should I believe in this God of yours? Do you have a reason? And if the answer is no, not just one, if you don't have three like logical, good explanations and reasons as to why God exists, then perfect. You have some things to study. You've got some things to learn. Wonderful. That's the beginning of like learning, is realizing I don't know. All right. So learn arguments supporting God's existence. Atheists and agnostics have really good questions. Christianity really does have great answers. Not good answers, great answers. So learn them, internalize them, be familiar with them, so at any moment, if someone asks, how does a good God allow evil things? Oh man, that's actually a really good question. And you're ready to go. You got it. You know how to respond. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I started with this. I'm telling you. Don't think that this is somehow going to overtake you. Don't be afraid. Don't be so nervous that you're like, I don't want to talk to them. I just avoid them in the break room because I know they're going to ask me something about Jesus and faith, and so I just rather just not. I promise you, don't be afraid. We have really, really good things to respond and to share with. All right. Last thing is pray for them. Pray for everyone, but pray. Pray specifically for these people that you know and love, maybe family members, maybe friends, relatives, coworkers, neighbors, whoever it may be. All right, Lord, hey, I'm praying that you open their minds and their heart. My guess is they're probably not going to turn from atheism and become a born-again Christian in 1 5-minute conversation out on your front porch. That's probably not going to happen. But they might get a little softer to it. You might be softening the hard pan. This hard soil might just be a little softer because you have some good responses. Okay, you ready? So here we go. Responding to atheism. Now, we'll spend the rest of the time going through these. And again, this is going to be rapid fire. And the goal is not that, by the end, you sit here and go, all right, I now know all 5, 6, 7 different evidences. But rather, you were exposed to it. You have notes. You can go home and Google and be like, all right, I want to find out more. I need some books on this. Come see me. I got 1 million books. I'll tell you the right books to get. And like, all right, you at least have a path to go down to continue to grow in this area. Okay, proof or evidence. This is the first thing. This is the first thing you have to realize and recognize. And if you get this wrong, honestly, if you get this wrong, you will, before you even get in a conversation, you've lost. Okay, number 1, there is no single proof for God's existence. There's no single proof. There's no silver bullet. There's no, I'm going to ask him a question, or I'm going to say this thing, or I'm going to show them this one verse, and it's going to prove it all. There is no one single proof where you could say, prove to me God exists, and you go, oh man, I've got this little tract that I bought online, and it's got this sentence, and read that. You read that, and tell me there's no God. Okay, really? I'm telling you, there is no proof. Now, that's the bad news. There is not a single proof. I'm not here to give you a proof. There's no single proof that proves God's existence. Okay, now, you ready for this? This is now where you get into like the philosophical metaphysics. Here we go, ready? There's no single proof for anything. So to say there is no proof for God, therefore he doesn't exist, listen, there's no proof, absolute proof for anything. There's no proof of anything. There's no proof that you and I exist. In fact, in philosophy, what they'll talk about is that this could be one giant simulation. In fact, they made a movie about it. It's called The Matrix. Made a lot of money. So they made sequels, and then they made a 4th one, and it was terrible. Don't want to. And the reason it was so amazing, because you're like, whoa, what if that's us? Listen, it could be. It could be. Like when you get into the really deep philosophical arguments, what they talk about is, listen, there's no proof of anything. There's no proof. You can't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt anything. What we have then are this, okay? This is what we do. We have various pieces of evidence. This would be, if you go to a crime scene, you talk to any investigator, there's no proof. There's no proof that this person committed this crime. What we get and what we gather is not proof. What we gather is evidence. And then we interpret the evidence to say, this is the most likely thing that happened. Make sense? Right? And the degree, even in law terms, is beyond, what is it? Beyond reasonable doubt. All right. So it doesn't mean 100%. It just means, all right, we don't have reasonable doubt that this is wrong. We can't prove it. We weren't there. We didn't see the thing happen. Even video can be doctored or a different angle or it can be interpreted wrong, but we don't have 100% proof. But we have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. So what we are wanting to do, what I'm going to do tonight, is to give you a preponderance of evidence that leads us to the existence of God. It's not one silver bullet. What we have is a collection of a whole array of different areas and evidences. And when you say, all right, look at all of these together, and what we do is we conclude the best explanation for all of these things we just talked about seems to be a supernatural, non-physical God, being, divinity of some kind. Now, we can figure out what he's like, but this best explains what we're talking about. Does that make sense? So you're not looking for a proof. In fact, when they say this, when they say, all right, prove to me God exists, you say, well, prove to me your name is what you say it is. All right, well, I got a license. Don't, get out of here. You telling me you can't make a fake ID? I've seen that in the movies everywhere, right? Some guy, how do I know you're not some super spy and like that, this is just your name. Of course you've got IDs. You probably got a passport with your name on it too. I sure do. See? You can't prove anything, right? All right, so what we're doing is not looking for a piece of evidence or a single proof. What we're doing is saying, look at all of this evidence. Now, how do we explain all of it? Not some of it. How do we best explain all of it? So here we go. How can we know about God? We can know God through creation. Our universe shows evidence of a creator. What we're looking for now is evidence, often called general revelation. These are things that God reveals to himself, about himself to us through nature to everyone. So this would be science. This would be the things that we can measure and put in a beaker or under a microscope, that we can study and observe. Great. We have what we could call communication. I'm gonna go through these. Don't spend too much time. If you need help, get your neighbors' answers. If you miss some afterwards, shoot me an email and I'll give you the document that has all the answers. But I'm not sending that to all 300 of you, okay? Actually, I will. I'm a nice guy. If you ask nicely, I'll send you everything I have. So, God has communicated with us. The content of the Bible gives us evidence of divine origin. Now, an atheist is not going to be like, oh, the Bible. No, I'm not quoting the Bible. I'm not going to quote the Bible to you. But what I'm going to tell you is that if there is a God, it seems to make sense he would communicate to us. And it just so happens we have a book that we claim, and there's plenty of evidence that this actually is from God. So we can learn about God from this book, even if you don't believe it. As a Christian, I can learn about God from this book. All right, that doesn't prove God exists, but it does at least show how I can learn about him. This is often called special revelation, the things that God told to specific people at specific times. We have general revelation, which we can see in the earth, universe, and creation. And then we have special revelation, the things that God actually tells people and wants them to do and speaks through them. This would be what we call the Bible, all right? And then we have a third category, our conscience. The moral law written on human conscience, here it is. On human conscience points to a moral lawgiver. We're going to talk about this here in a little bit. But we have morality. And we can know things about God simply because we seem to be hardwired that some things are right and good, some things are wrong and bad. The very nature of reason is in question if an objective moral standard doesn't exist. If what we're saying, like the atheist says, there is no objective moral value or moral truth, then reason itself is at risk here. Because, ready? If humans are the products of evolutionary chance, why should our reasoning abilities even be trusted? What if we're wrong? What if our ability to observe our universe is actually faulty? How can we trust even our brains if they're just simply chemical reactions brought about by an evolutionary process over millions and millions of years? How can we say that that is right or true? All right. Okay, arguments for the existence of God. Here we go. The first cosmological argument is this: everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe had a beginning. Therefore, the universe had a cause. Okay, this is what we looked at earlier, right? You're like, okay, well, sure, we already looked at that. Yes, there's key details in this. Ready? Everything that had a beginning had a cause. Usually what someone will say is, well, what caused God? Hold on, no, you don't understand. Only things that have a beginning have a cause. Things that don't have a beginning, we could call uncaused. Now, there's only one possible thing or being that could be uncaused or not have a beginning. We call it God, you call it divine. Let's not even say it's the Christian God. We can just say that a supernatural being that would have created everything would, if, as we say, would not have a cause because he is uncreated without beginning. So, everything that has a beginning has a cause. Anything that starts has a cause. The universe started and had a beginning. Therefore, the universe had a cause. Most scientists, most atheists will agree with you on this. They won't like to say God did it, but they'll say the Big Bang. The Big Bang is a great conversation. I love the topic of the Big Bang. We see evidence of the Big Bang. I myself am a proponent and believe in the Big Bang. You know why? Because I read about it in Genesis chapter 1. That there was nothing, and then there was something. God spoke, and something happened. He created ex nihilo. From nothing, everything came into being. And who knows, maybe it even made a bang. The Big Bang, for us, is actually like the Big Bang is a problem for you guys, not for us. The Big Bang we read about. We can describe what it is and how that happened, but the Big Bang is not a problem for believers because it actually fits perfectly with our understanding of creation. So the universe has a cause. We would say that a divine being caused it, who is outside of nature, who's supernatural, who is outside of time and space and matter. So this being, this mind, this thing, whatever or whoever it or he is, created all of this. Okay. The design argument. Every design has a designer. You'll see a kind of a similarity here. The universe and life has a highly complex design, both on a large scale in galaxies and the universe, and also on a small scale at a cellular level. Like the amount of design is unbelievable in our existence, in life, all right? Everything that has a design has a designer. So therefore, it would follow that the universe has a designer. Now, again, these are, we're very simplistic here and we're going through these really quick. You could study these and say like, no, these are really good arguments. And they really, really, really are. In fact, so much so that atheists, especially Richard Dawkins, who wrote The God Delusion, he said this, that the universe only appears to be designed, but it's really not. Here's what he's saying. I'll grant you. There looks like design. All of this looks like design. It's hard to deny. But it's not real design. It just looks like it. Evolution is so smart and was so effective that everything looks designed, but it's not. He even has to acknowledge, okay, there's some design here, but it's fake. It's pretend. It's just an illusion. It's not real design. Okay. The fine-tuning argument. This is a subset of the design argument. Intelligent life requires very specific values for it to exist. Life in general requires a very, very, very specific set of values for it to exist. Slight variations in any one of a number of values would be catastrophic and not allow life to exist. Not just like it's wrong by one thing got wrong. No. If any one of these, and there's literally like, if you go into the discussions about, go deep into this, the way they describe it is a machine with millions of dials, and every single one of them has to be exactly to the degree, like on the right setting, otherwise the whole thing breaks. All right, that's how specific this universe has to be for life to exist. The odds, we'll just pick one of the dials. The odds that the strength of gravity would fall within a life-permitting range are 1 in 10 to the 60. All right, 1 in 10 to the 60 means 10 with 6 zeros behind it. I don't even know how to say a number like that. We can't even count to that number. That's the odds, 1 in 10 to the 60. Just simply that gravity is such that you and I are allowed to actually like not be crushed. Either not be crushed or it's so weak that we just fly apart. That gravity has to be the exact right value, right? Here's another one, ready? The odds that the cosmological constant, the strength of gravity in a vacuum, would fall within the life-permitting range are 1, it's actually like worse. 1 in 10 to the 120th. All right, if 60 zeros was a lot, just write 120 zeros. Okay, this is crazy, right? So this, without getting into it, I'll just share, but you don't have to have all this memorized. The cosmological constant is this. It's the strength of gravity in a vacuum. Right now we have gravity on Earth, right? Because we don't live in a vacuum. The strength of gravity in a vacuum is how everything else exists and how the universe exists. And it's got to be the right amount for particles to even form to create a planet. Make sense? That if there wasn't enough attraction for any particles at all, we would have no solid surfaces ever. If it was too weak, everything would float away. If it was too strong, everything would collapse together. But it's got to be just right for planets to even form. And then on that planet, gravity has to be just right for life to form. If any of it's wrong, there is no life. All right, that's just two of these dials. Let's describe, okay? The number of atoms in the observable universe is estimated to be 10 to the 80th power, 10 with 80 zeros. Now, here's what that means. Ready? Here's what that is. Every single atom that we could ever know or experience or see in the universe, not in like this room or on this planet or in this Milky Way solar system. Every atom that in the observable universe we know about is about 10 to the 80th power. All right, so here's what that means. Ready? The odds of getting one of these constants, the gravitational pull, if you're gonna memorize some, just memorize the gravity. You don't need to like learn all of them, but just just gravity itself is on par with the odds of finding a randomly marked atom somewhere in the visible universe. All right, not a planet, not a marble. You're just gonna get on you get a little spaceship. You're like, all right, we're gonna go find the missing atom. This is like, universe Easter egg hunt. All right, here we go. We're gonna go find an atom. The odds of you going to the right spot and picking out the right atom, just tiny, you can't even see it, is 1 in 10 to the 80th. Okay, it's easier to do that than to get this cosmic constant right. You see why this whole like fine-tuning thing is a big deal? That it actually points to, okay, something's up here. What are the odds? What are the odds that life exists? So here's what one doctor says. He's the president of the New York Academy of Sciences. He says, so many essential conditions are necessary for life to exist on our earth that it is mathematically impossible that all of them could exist in proper relation by chance on any one earth at one time. Here's what he's saying. It is mathematically, like when you put the numbers together, this is a mathematical impossibility. All right, so again, this points to some kind of intentional designer. The odds of these very specific values occurring in our universe by chance are astronomically small, to the point where this guy says this is mathematically impossible. There's no, like, you would win the lotto 1,000,000 times before any one of these came true. Is that impossible? The odds are so small, it can only be attributed to an intentional, intelligent designer. That this wasn't by chance, it was on purpose. Again, this is not a proof, but that's strong evidence. We're putting together a crime scene. Hey, that's some strong evidence. All right, what else you got? Okay, good. We got more evidence, right? The goal is a preponderance of evidence. All right, let's talk about the moral argument. Moral laws require a lawgiver. There has not been a single law that has been passed that wasn't passed by a person or a body or a government. Every one of them had someone or something behind it, right? All right, moral laws require some kind of moral lawgiver. Absolute moral laws exist. They do. And we know this to be true because no one says Hitler was right. It was wrong. No one says that the Holocaust was morally acceptable. They may say it was right or good because, but we call, that's what we call evil. That is morally wrong. We'll take it on a smaller level. No one will say it is morally acceptable to murder someone. All right, so there's at least a couple moral absolutes. All right, where do those come from? We talked about this on Sunday a little bit. Why is it wrong to murder? As an atheist, that's a problem. That's a real problem. In fact, many will take this to their logical conclusion and say it's not. Just like a lion killing a lion is not murder. We're just animals. And so it actually isn't wrong. It's only wrong because we decide culturally that it's wrong. All right? Fair. What if another culture decides it's right? Is it now right all of a sudden? If it's just cultural, then how can we say Nazi Germany was wrong? Because they passed them. That was the culture of Germany, was to exterminate the Jews. Why was that wrong? That is a hard question to answer outside of some sort of appeal to something that was just morally wrong about it. Yes. So there are moral absolutes. So therefore, there has to be some sort of moral lawgiver. There is no moral law that doesn't have someone or a group of someones behind it. If there is a moral law, for instance, murder is always wrong in every circumstance, in every culture, throughout time, it's wrong. All right, why? Where did that come from? Because it doesn't exist in the animal kingdom anywhere, but it does with humans. All right, again, this evidence points to something outside of ourselves deciding this for us or telling us. How is it that in an impersonal universe, again, if the universe was uncaused and impersonal and it just happened by mere chance, by odds, how is an impersonal universe could result in a personal morality? Either there is no personal morality, that it's just do what you want, or it's an illusion, that morality is an illusion. And that the fact that it's personal is just because we decided that. It's just an evolutionary trick, but it's not real. It's just survival of the species, but it's not actually morally wrong. It's just, not ideal to go kill everyone. Okay? There must be a standard of justice by which to pronounce something unjust. To say anything is wrong or unjust means that there has to be some level of justice or things that are just. What is that and where does that come from? Right? This is one of those things that like it's innate. You feel this, you know this. You'll see photos and you say, this is wrong. This is wrong. Why is it wrong? What if in that culture they decided it was okay? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Some things are wrong always, and some of these, this is wrong. Where does that come from? It seems to be built in us, right? You know what I'm saying? My dog does whatever he wants, and he only knows it's wrong when I point at him and say his name loud, and he realizes, oh, I shouldn't have done that thing. He doesn't think, I just did that. There was early on when he was still a puppy, we took him to a friend's house, and this is not my notes, so, story time, here we go. And he saw a chicken, and it got out, and he went after it. Was like, oh, and had it in his mouth, got it. Shaking it around, and the chicken's like, I'm dead, I'm gonna die. Now, he didn't know that was wrong. He was like, this is awesome. I've never had a toy move. Like, this is wonderful. Like, this is the most fun of my life. And he got in trouble, and I think the chicken maybe lived another week or something. It was a featherless chicken. It was actually, we helped them out. We did the work for them. And he doesn't know or think that was probably wrong. That's probably wrong for me to try to kill another living being. He was like, this is awesome. Okay, why do we think it's wrong to murder? Animals certainly don't. Okay, values are rooted, what we would say, in God's nature. Therefore, standards of right and wrong flow naturally from God. Now, again, none of this introduces like the Christian God. It's just simply saying a divine being outside of what we can measure naturally. Okay? Here we go. Again, a preponderance of evidence. Here we're just going through argument after argument. All right. The immaterial argument. Again, in naturalism, the only thing that exists is the material world. Okay, there is a problem with that philosophy, and that is this: you and I have a mind. The mind-body problem is a challenge for atheists and agnostics. There appears to be an immaterial component to human beings. Here it is, ready? Ideas matter. Ideas. We fight, we start countries and rebel and fight wars over ideas, immaterial things. Things like freedom, love, justice, humor are immaterial concepts. Now, if all that exists is what you can measure, then there is no such thing as love or freedom or justice or humor. It's just our bodies tricking ourselves. But there aren't real immaterial values or ideas. But these are the very things that make us human. And these are immaterial truths. These aren't things you can measure. Can you measure in a lab how much you love your child? No. Well, therefore, you must not love your child. Well, no, that's also not true. Not everything that exists can be measured in a lab. This data is ignored by the materialists or dismissed as irrelevant because they know this is a real problem. If God exists, the case for the immaterial makes sense. That there are things that aren't material and natural, and God can actually explain things like love and justice and beauty and freedom and humor and the things that we center our lives around, that we teach our kids. All of those are immaterial, and if God exists, it makes sense that immaterial things also exist. All right, the inspired Bible argument. Here we go. Some portions of the New Testament were written within 20 years of the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus. As much as we want to say that this was hundreds and hundreds of years later, okay, I get the argument and the discussion, but the history of the world actually teaches us different. These portions that are written down, put forth core truths about Christianity. Not things that were discovered or written down in 325 at Nicaea because of Constantine, which is often the argument. These things were during the same generation of Jesus, of those who were with Jesus. Many witnesses to Christ were still alive when the New Testament was written and circulated. This would be writing someone's biography while they're still alive and saying, this is accurate and true. It's easy after someone's dead, but when they're alive and you're talking to witnesses and you even tell, like you name names, the Gospels name names. Hey, if you don't believe us, go talk to them. They were there. Oh, it names names. Here's what also we see. This argument that like we don't have a single original document. There's not a single original manuscript that we have. Yes, it's true. You know why? All ancient works were written on fragile materials such as leather or papyrus. You know why we don't have an original manuscript of the Bible? Because we don't have an original manuscript of anything. It isn't like, well, the Bible doesn't have, there's no proof. You don't have an original manuscript. We don't have an original manuscript of anything. So how can we know anything to be true? Now, we'll look at an example here in a second. The standard isn't, well, you don't have the original document. Well, yeah, we don't have any original document of anything in history. Like pre-printing, like what we call prehistory, we don't have any of that. So, we do not possess the original manuscripts of the Gospels or of any document, but we have completely accurate copies that convey all the essential truths of the originals. This is why the Dead Sea Scrolls was such a big deal, to compare, our current version of the Bible, or at least the manuscripts that we have, to look at okay, well, these go back far now. Now we're talking like in the first few centuries. All right, we're gonna see how much the Bible's changed. And it was a whole lot of nothing. It was like, not only are they accurate, they're identical. Oh, shoot. This whole telephone game thing that like we're told to, you do telephone game. Well, it turns out that they got the words right exactly. like the telephone worked. And there was no difference. Wow. Okay. So we have copies of all of it. And here's what's interesting. Okay. So you guys ever heard of Plato? Not like Play-Doh. I mean, but the Plato, the philosopher. All right. Here's what we have. Ready? We have 7 copies of Plato, written 1,300 years after Plato. How accurate do you think those are? That is the telephone game. That's 1,300 years of telephone game. And we say, all right. Now, does anyone question Plato or his writings or say, oh, listen, we don't have a single original manuscript of Plato, so therefore you can't trust anything he says. No, we study Plato, we read Plato. We would credit Plato to helping beginning sort of this like Western idea of democracy and justice and all kinds of things, and the mind, the body, soul, experience, like Plato. Wow, we don't question Plato or his writings. We have 7 copies, 1,300 years after, and we don't question it. We don't question that. Now, we have over 5,000 copies of the New Testament written within 20 to 150 years. And we say, yeah, not good enough. But you don't have an original manuscript. Yeah, we don't have nobody has an original manuscript of anything. But listen, if you take the names out, and if we take away New Testament and we take away Plato and we just say book and book, listen, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. It doesn't take an adult, a child. Hey, let's compare. Which one has more? Which one is more accurate? Listen, this argument is simply because of the word Bible. It has nothing to do with the amount or the original manuscripts. Okay, what about evil? Let's go to this. All right, what about evil? Here's the dilemma, okay? Personally, so just between you and me, when I'm talking to someone who is either agnostic or atheist, I like to bring this up first. I mean, not like right out the gate. Like, I meet someone and they're like, oh, hey, I don't believe in God. Like, the next thing I say is, well, what about evil? No, I don't do that. Okay, that's not when I say I bring it up first. But if I'm having a legitimate conversation and about faith and how you know things, I bring up evil not as a problem for us, but what's called the problem, what's often referred to as the problem of evil, is actually a really good argument for our side. A really good argument for our side. One that we should say, actually, it's not a problem at all. At least not for me. The problem of evil is not a problem for me. It might be for an atheist. In fact, it is for an atheist. So the dilemma, here it is. Either God has allowed evil for a good purpose, or evil is a power equal with God. So the fact that evil exists, we have 2 options. God allows it because he could stop it, or he can't allow it because it is on par with his ability. He's not all-powerful, that he and evil are on the same part. Now, as Christians, we certainly don't hold to that, and the Bible doesn't hold to that somehow evil is like Jesus and the devil are like in some arm wrestling match, and they're both like, oh, you got that century, but I'm getting the next one, and you're like, this fight back. That's not what is going on here. All right. The Bible shows us that God did indeed allow evil for a greater good. There are many times where in the Bible where it says, what you meant for harm, God used for good. Or God used to teach someone, or to instruct, or to bring them to himself. This is an area where you probably have some experience, where a really difficult, maybe tragic time in your life actually brought you closer to God. And you would say, if I didn't go through that, I don't know if I would be where I am. So does evil have a purpose? Well, not all evil, but some of it probably does. That God could use some evil for good. All right, and we can see it, we can explain some evil for good. You know an easy one? A really easy moment you can explain, you can say God used evil for good is the cross. That God allowed evil to happen for me. God, at least I can explain at least one instance of evil where God allowed it because it was for my good. And it's the cross of Jesus. All right. I can explain one. God in his infinite wisdom probably can explain all of it. All right, so God does allow evil. Now, this is not the best world. Now, this is key. But this is the best way to the best possible world. One of the things that often gets brought up in the problem of evil is this. That why doesn't God create a world in which there is no evil? He could. Why doesn't he? And the short answer is this. Oh, he is. We're just not there yet. He is. You actually know God's plan to create a world in which there's no more crying or death or pain or sorrow. You read his playbook. You actually described God's plan. No more evil. And this world is the best way to that best possible world. So we have evil, but this is temporary. All of this is it's not, we don't write it off. It's not like, it's not minute. It's not, we don't say like, oh, it's meaningless. No. This evil is really bad and really hard. And a lot of it we can't explain, or at least be like, well, why does this happen? Well, who am I to say why this instance of evil happened? But on a large scale, in all of eternity, this is temporary. God is creating a world in which there is no evil, and in doing so, like this is the best way to that best possible world because of what we call free will. Now, without a standard of right and wrong, here's why it's a problem, not for us. I think we have a good response as to why evil, at least some evil, exists. Evil, and the standard of right and wrong, without it, how can anyone call anything evil? This is why it's a problem for an atheist who says there's no moral absolutes. Well, you just said the word evil. That seems to be a moral absolute, a negative one. Where does that come from? In a world of naturalism, where it's just survival of the fittest, how can there be anything that's evil? Evil and injustice are concepts that require the existence of a standard. And the standard is good and justice. Whatever those things are, when that doesn't happen or those are broken, we call that evil or injustice. All right, there's got to be some kind of standard. If God does not exist, where does this standard come from? If there's no God, then how can you call anything evil, especially if morality is just determined by cultures? Who are you to decide what another culture determines what's right and what's wrong? Who are you to put your place as the judge over someone else's culture or society? Who are you to say the Nazis were wrong? Who are you to say that any tribe in, some undiscovered land is wrong? Who are you to say cannibalism is wrong? Who are you to say that child sacrifice is wrong, is evil? It is evil. No, it's evil because we believe in an actual objective standard of good and evil. But you can't do that if you're a materialist, if you're a naturalist, if you are an atheist. Evil only exists as a negation of good. It is the opposite of what we call good. Now let's talk about evil. God did not create evil, but by creating free creatures, God left open the possibility of the choice of evil. This is the free will argument, and it is a good one, that God allows people to choose, that love can only be love if chosen. Otherwise, it's just compulsion, and it's not love. So you have the choice. True love is a choice, and you can choose not love. You can choose rebellion. You can choose what we call evil. God did not create evil, but gave creatures, created free creatures that left the possibility open of choice. This is the beginning of the Bible, the garden. Hey, you got a choice, and they made the wrong choice, and, we're all going to let them have it when we see them, if we see them, right? Like, God is responsible for the fact of freedom. This is, if there's a line you want to learn, this is a good one. But not the acts of freedom. God is responsible for giving us freedom. He's not responsible for what you choose to do with that freedom. Make sense? If you choose to use your freedom for evil, it's not God causing evil. It's him giving you freedom, and then you do something evil with it. if God were to destroy all evil now, ready for this? No one would exist. If the goal is that God and his all power, he can stop evil, great. As soon as he decides to do that, every single one of us loses our life. We're dead. That's it. We are no more. He can't allow anyone to continue if he's gonna remove evil, because God would have to not just destroy actual evil, but all potential evil. He would have to destroy anything that could do evil ever. And do you know who that would include? You. You might do something evil or sinful or wrong or bad to yourself, to someone else. And so God, removing evil, has to remove you. Now, that doesn't seem the best possible way to the best possible world, to remove every single person in it. So God allows instances of evil, because to destroy evil would be to destroy all of us. To destroy evil, God would have to destroy all free will. Ooh, that doesn't sound like the best possible world. So we're allow for evil. Your personal experience argument. Now, here we go. The last thing. Your story of coming to know God is extremely powerful. So don't be afraid to share it. I'm telling you. As much as we go through all these arguments, you sharing with a person how you came to faith, how you came to know Jesus, what the difference it's happened that he's had in your life, how you've changed, is powerful. All right. We have no time, so let's just keep going. At your tables, I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to just discuss these questions, all right? And then we'll have a little Q&A back and forth, and you'll be able to ask some questions. So question number one is, what atheist argument do you find is the hardest to respond to? Steel man, right? We're not doing the easy stuff, all right? Presenting the atheist argument, what part of that was like, oh man, yeah, that one, ooh, okay, that one would be hard to respond to, all right. And second, what evidences for God do you find the most compelling? That you would say, ooh, that's actually really good. Like that makes the most sense. Got it? Okay, at your tables, you can discuss, and if you're gonna talk, you can just share your name real quick, and then go and talk a minute or so. If I say talk and someone starts talking and then I come back and that same person is still talking, you did it wrong, okay? You did it wrong. All right, ready? Discuss. All right. I know that was like no time to discuss. I totally get it. But I also want to have some opportunity for some Q&A. So we can do some Q&A. After we're done, if your table is just so lovely and you love the people so much and you want to stay and chat, go for it, right? You know, you can stay here till, well, not till midnight, but pretty close if you like. Okay. Questions that you have or would, for me or about what we talked about or anything related to this topic whatsoever, just throw your hand up. We got 2 mic runners here. We'll come bring you a mic. Make sure you speak into the mic so that the rest of us can hear you. All right. Anyone? Oh, here we go, right front. Wonderful. Okay, we got a mic. Wonderful.
At our table, I think I am. Sorry.
You see what I have to deal with all the time? Yeah, I get it.
If everything is caused into existence, and it maybe started with the Big Bang, and then there's this whole evolution thing that evolves. Where did God start? How do we explain if we're up against somebody who says, well, if everything has a cause, and so everything had a beginning, how do you explain the fact that there is no beginning to God?
Yep. Okay, so a few things. Okay. I hesitate not because I don't have an answer, but because I want to be nice. You changed a few of the premises to make that fit in a logical argument, but the premises are wrong. The premise of everything came into being and has a cause. Not everything came into being. The premise is everything that came into being has a cause. So we don't agree or say that God had a beginning or a cause or what caused him. What we're saying, what the Bible says, is that God is eternal and outside of time and that he caused everything else. So we don't, the argument is this: everything that has a beginning has a cause. The things that don't have a beginning don't have a cause. And the only thing that doesn't have a beginning is God. So there's no requirement to say he has a cause or that he is caused, because then it would just be one more domino. Well then who caused God? Well then what caused that? At some point it becomes this absurd level of it just goes on forever, except for the fact that there is a God and he's infinite, which means he is like forever, and he's eternal. He's existed in past, present, future, and he exists outside of time. So he exists outside of space, outside of time, and outside of matter. So he is immaterial, he is spaceless, he can be everywhere, and he is timeless. Make sense? It makes sense in the description, but like what you're asking is this: how can I describe something that's infinite? That is a question God can answer. But it's a question only he can. In fact, as an atheist, like the opposite option, like their option is far worse, because they'll say the Big Bang. All right, what happened before the Big Bang? Well, there was this primordial soup of proteins. No. Where'd those come from? Well, they just were there. No, stop. Those all had a beginning. They have to have some kind of cause. What we're saying is that there's a God outside of all of this, and he caused it. But he himself doesn't have a cause. Does that make sense? Do you now understand the full nature of God in everything of who he is? That's what we're asking, is like, how do I understand God? Well, yeah, what we know is what we're told. So what we know is what we're told about him, not this is how it all works. Does that make sense? So we're not trying to describe, here's the intricacies of the divinity and how it works. What we're saying is, This is who he is, and this is what he says about himself. And this is how he describes the universe and our reality. And it makes the most sense of all the evidence. Is that good? That's as close as we're going to get to where did God come from. We can ask him one day. God, who was your dad? He's like, Dad, there is no grandfather in the Trinity, right? Good, that's good. I like it, good, okay. I like that, it's thoughtful. Okay, good. Anyone else? Questions? Here's one. Okay, go for it. Here comes the microphone.
Oh, thank you. I actually didn't bring this up to my table.
That's a good start.
But
good preface.
I was wondering where it says God did not create evil, but he placed the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden.
Yes.
Where'd the tree come from? So
okay.
To me it read like that
Yeah.
knowledge and evil already existed.
They did.
Yes.
But that still doesn't say God created them.
No.
What he created was a tree that gave you knowledge about them.
Yes.
Okay? So, well, let's just logically walk our way back through this. Okay, so that's good. Where did it come from? Where did evil come from? Oh, okay. I'll answer the question since none of you. Evil existed pre-fall. The fall was when humans fell, but evil already existed. And we know this because at this point there's already evil spirits, what are often referred to as evil spirits or demons or whatever it may be. Lucifer, or the serpent in the garden, that was you. Okay, so, but even before humans, there was already a fall. And evil the first instance of evil was when Satan is a better name. Lucifer is a Latin translation. Maybe that's his name. Honestly, we should never be like calling him by name anyways. But this being, Lucifer, Satan, was the first to rebel against God. Thus, free will allowed for now a good side and an evil side. And now Adam and Eve get to choose between the two. Make sense? So God doesn't create it and say like, here's an evil tree, here's a good tree. This tree is the tree to open their eyes to understand the difference between the knowledge of evil and good. And they made a terrible choice. And thank you for that, Eve. You know what's funny? Eve gets a bad rap, but she doesn't get blamed for it. Did you know that in the Bible? She doesn't get blamed for it. It's always Adam, right? And man, in every one of our homes, that's the same pattern. It's always the guy's fault. No, I'm just, sorry. That was a terrible joke. But legitimately, in the Bible, like in Romans and like Paul, they don't say like, oh, Eve, it's always Adam, right? Adam sinned. He was the first Adam, and then Jesus is the one, like through one man, sin came into the world, Adam, and through another man, now sin can be defeated through Jesus. Like, oh, okay, so it really was Adam's fault. As much as we want to say Eve, dude didn't know what he was doing. Okay, good question. Yeah, great.
So Satan was the first one to bring evil in. He was jealous of God, wanted to be like God. But where did that come from?
Which thing? His decision?
Satan wanted to be like God, and he
comes from free choice.
Rebelled. Yeah. Okay.
So think of I think C.S. Lewis was the one to help us understand what evil is, or like how to describe evil. Don't think of evil as a thing. Evil is the absence of a thing, just like light and darkness. If we turn our lights off, it isn't we turn the dark lights on. Darkness is the absence of light. It's what happens when there is no light. It's what we call darkness. But we don't have we don't install any darkness beams in here. It just is, right? It's the absence of light. It's still a thing, but it's not like we don't measure dark, like photons and rays of darkness, because we measure light, because it's an actual thing. Evil is not, if we think of it like that, evil is not a thing, it is the absence of the good thing. So when you choose not good, what's left is evil. Does that make sense? Right? Same thing with like cold and heat. We measure heat. We don't measure, like, we say cold, but cold is the absence of heat. So evil is the absence of good. So what Satan did was he chose not the good. He said, I want to be like God, better than God, and pride entered, and thus, no, that is sin, and that is not good, and thus you can't be. Thus the fall, the first fall, and then subsequent, our fall, and then all of us needing a Savior. Yes? Does that help at least, right? Yeah?
Does the Bible actually talk about elect angels?
About elect angels?
Elect angels, that angels can't sin.
That angels can't sin?
That some angels can't sin.
Depends who you ask. So there's a guy named Michael Heiser, and he's written a lot of books, and he's since passed away, and he's a Hebrew scholar, and he talks about, we often think of the fall as a one-time event, that the angels sin and then they pick their spots. But he goes on to say, actually, like we can make the argument in Scripture that there's probably multiple angelic falls, that it wasn't they were allowed to sin one time, but like they could any good angel right now could elect to sin and fall, and thus be cast out of heaven, right? It's why, anyways, in the book of Revelation is hard because it's okay. Here we go. All right, you ready? Sit down. Depending on how you see the book of Revelation, when it was written, it was future, right? So whatever it's in there was future to John. I still think it's future, at least most of it, but some will say it's past, whatever it is. All right. In that, it describes this fall of angels. And we often say like, oh, that's in the past. But actually, like when you read it, it is describing potentially a second fall. So can angels currently fall? Logically, I see no reason why they can't. And biblically, there might be instances of a number of falls, if that makes sense. Does that help? Ish? Yeah. Okay, we'll do this one, and if it's anyone else? If not, we'll end on him. Oh, two more. Okay. Oh, is it father and son? Yeah. Oh, gosh. That's, first of all, good on you. That's awesome. Okay, ready for it.
Yeah, so it says to destroy evil, God would have to destroy free will. And I was also just looking and kind of made the connection that God is going to make a new world. And so I was wondering if in that new world it'll be like ours, where it's perfect at first and then it gets tainted by sin just because we have free will, or like will there be no free will?
What do you think?
I think there will be free
You're
will.
like, that's terrible. That's why I'm
know.
asking you. You think there'll be free will?
Yeah,
That's good.
but I don't know.
That's good. Okay, so do you understand the question? All right, there's free will now, which means there's an option for sin or evil. In the future, sin is done away with, and there's no more, crying or mourning or pain or evil. So then, like, is free will gone? Right? That seems like that seems like a little bit of a pickle we're in. All right. Here's the answer. God deals with evil now in such a way that it is permanent, and allows for sin to be dealt with through His Son. So all future evil is taken care of, and He gives us a new body in which we can now have free will, but also now, because of the death of Jesus, can be reconstituted in such a way that there is no more sin. That we don't. The best way I've heard it is described is that it's not that we won't want to sin, it's that we won't want to sin. It won't even be something that we desire to do, because it's been paid for and conquered, and death wears your sting. And so the test has been taken, and Jesus passed for us, and so now we get to enjoy Like, we get to enjoy life now without having to deal with that. So Jesus made right what Adam made wrong in the garden. Make sense? Sort of, right? So will we still be able to have free will? Absolutely. Is it the kind of free will we have now? Well, no, because sin won't be an option, because we will be made in such a way that we won't want to. The sin virus we have will be paid for and forgiven and rebuilt in such a way that it's now gone because of the death of Jesus. Make sense? Good. By the way, it's gonna be a sweet day when we get there, right? I mean, literally, like, I don't know what you guys believe. I hope you believe in, heaven. And we say we do, but legitimately, like, if we believe in the Bible, it's a real place. And you're really gonna go there. And the first thing we do is have a huge meal, a wedding bake. Like, I can't wait. It's so good, right? If we think our buffets are good, like, we just wait. All right. Okay, last one.
Dad had the same question.
Dad had the same question?
Yep.
All right, let me answer
They were
it again.
reading each
Okay,
other's
so
minds,
let's
I
tell you.
guess.
All right, I don't know what you said. Okay, are we good? All right, let me pray for us, and then we will officially be done, and then make sure to grab kids, and we'll be back Sunday. Grab your kid, by the way, not just like a kid. Don't grab a kid. Real quick before we're done, a commercial. Okay, I'm starting a class on Sunday evenings, 4 classes on, we call it evangelism, but it really is, it's kind of a scary word. It really is how to have conversations. So this is the what we talked about today was the what. What we're gonna go over on Sunday, and then the next 3 weeks, is the how. How do you have good conversations with people like this, with people who believe different? So I'm telling you, like, I never want to oversell something. I'm telling you, this really will change how you talk to people in every area of your life. Am I overselling it? I don't think so. First of all, you don't know. You don't know if I'm overselling it because you don't know what the class is. But I'm telling you, so if you're on the fence, just sign up. Come to the first one. If it's terrible, never come again and find a new church. But it's gonna be good, I promise. Let me pray. So Lord, thanks for tonight. Thanks that we can have thoughtful interactions especially with regard to atheism, which is probably maybe the most militant, or at least like the worldview in most opposition with us. Lord, I pray that we would be able to have great conversations with people who are either atheist or agnostic and opposed to faith, not to win a fight, but to hopefully, Lord, help bring them just one step closer to you. Give us that opportunity. Give us insight. Give us the desire and time and ability to continue to grow in our knowledge of you and of what those around us believe. We thank you, Lord. We pray your continued blessing and that you will continue to move in our lives. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. What time Sunday? Okay, good.